Global crude prices have spiked by over 45% in the past 12 months, and the ripple effects are clearly being felt in Uganda.
Well, local palm prices have already jumped from 3,700 to over 4,000 shillings. This is Money and Markets, and I'm Charles Boji.
And I'm Malaki Vela-Odera. Welcome to Money and Markets. Coming up on the show, demystifying artificial intelligence and its effect on human capital.
Uganda's economic growth story. What are the facts? And a blow-by-blow account of how banks made money in a depressed economic environment.
Let's talk about the economy. So just recently, 3 different government agencies actually gave us varying figures of the economy. What do you have to say about that?
Well, you'd say it's strange, but now the National Planning Authority is coming out to give us the true figures of how we're growing as a country.
That's amazing. So take a look at this story.
I'll start off on the issue of the economy. We've had several, discussions here and there on that issue. It's one of the most topical areas. But I'm interested in knowing, is the economy growing?
Charles, I'll be very clear on this, that the economy is growing. In fact, for a very long time, 3 decades or so, the Ugandan economy has always been on the positive growth. Only that for the last 2 or 3 years, the rate of growth reduced. So if we've been growing at an average of 6%, now we are growing at 3.9%, at 4.3%. So the rate of growth went down. So when that happens, as the actors in the economy feel it, you have less money, you have less people buying your goods, you have less transport, people using the transport system, and so on and so forth. So, but what we've seen over the last 1 year is that the growth has rebounded.
Now, a follow-up question on that. We've had, several numbers, coming from different quarters, at least as per the press or the reports we are reading from the press. Probably you can help us clarify on this issue. At what rate is the economy growing?
The numbers we have at the moment, because UBOS releases them with a lag. So the numbers we have was up to the end of the second quarter of the financial year 17-18. And I want this to be clear that in those 2 quarters, the economy has been growing at about 7% per annum. For those 2 quarters, according to the Bureau of Statistics numbers.
Now, based on that, because this growth, what is driving this growth? Where is it coming from?
One, investment, public investments in the economy. As long as you see infrastructure being developed, yes. Whether they are roads, whether they are dams and so on, there is that economic activity. We've also tried to tighten a bit on procurement laws to allow the big developers to acquire inputs from the local economy. So all the cement now for Karuma and Isimba is being manufactured in Hima. So when we have these kind of activities, we automatically create growth, and this is one of the growth centers that is happening.
I hear you, Doctor. Now, lastly, based on that, are we on track to attaining Vision 2040?
It's a hard question, because the Vision 2040 is still 20 years away, 20-something years away, meaning that we can change the gear at some point. And this economy has ever grown at 9%. The economies in the world that have grown above 10%, China, for a very good period of time, grew at 10% until they accelerated later. Ethiopia has grown at more than 10%. So it's possible in the future to change. So we believe that the aspirations in the Uganda Vision 2040 should continue to drive the agenda. Okay, we may fail to hit the target in this second national development plan, but do better in the third national development plan.
Mala, a number of banks made out of money last year.
Yeah.
And this was happening in an environment where several businesses were actually going under.
That is quite interesting. So how they actually managed to stay afloat is our focus in the next story.
Even in the face of reduced profitability, most commercial banks last year performed fairly compared to many other sectors of the economy, going by the recently released results by the players. Some actually posted profits northward of 90 billion shillings.
You know, banks have what we would call a safe haven. When things are not working out, the only direction they run to is to the central bank to buy bills and bonds, which are near zero risk. So any conservative banker will look at that as the only avenue to, invest. Now, you can even see that now it is reflecting through the lower yields. This is the lowest we've ever come in terms of bills and bonds, 8-9%, never seen. The reason is every banker is scrambling to go in the fixed income space.
Also true is that as banks focused on that risk-free direction, the private sector found itself crowded out. All this came at the back of suppressed economic growth, marked by the winding down of some major players like Nagmat, low demand, a fair number of non-performing loans, the continued protracted request of a bailout by several distressed businesses, and the persistent failure by government to meet its state obligations to local suppliers. While today the cost of money has significantly come down to as low as 17% interest on loans, a bigger part of 2017, the prior period, was a fairly different story, a position that the central bank and the Ministry of Finance also seem to agree with.
Lack of access to secure and affordable financial services such as credit and savings reduces household ability to invest, save, and respond to shocks.
So from the foregoing, we must identify the various factors impeding access and use of financial services. And I will not miss this chance again to bring out the issue of the interest rate spreads. 10% is still very high as an interest rate spread.
The situation, according to the central bank, is mainly because of the failure by some players to manage the cost of doing business, which result into many of these extending the cost to the borrowers.
A bank operating in Uganda where non-interest expenses as a ratio of gross income averages 59. It averages 59 in Uganda compared to Kenya, which is about 52. So Uganda is a very high cost economy in terms of delivering financial services. I should actually mention there are banks with a cost to income ratio of 90%.
But circumstances are changing, according to some observers. Banks have picked the central bank's signal of lowering its benchmark rate to an all-time low of 9%, with some charging as low as 17% interest on loans. However, the cumulative impact of the industry's prior misgivings and those beyond the financial sector have crushed the loan appetite.
Banks are sitting on quite high levels of liquidity, but there is no uptake from the private sector. Now, you ask yourself why. The answer to that question is that there is no vibrant economic activity in the economy to enable the private sector to pick up credit. Now, because of that, PSC is constrained, but also businesses are almost at a standstill because they cannot expand, they cannot produce, and they remain where they are.
So the business community believes that the cost of money in an already distressed economic environment in the year 2017 worsened their woes, leading many into losing their property to the banking industry, and is also the reason why many are keeping away from picking credit. True, however, is that banks are still making money through other avenues. Whether that is sustainable or not is another subject. Malcolm Sime, NTV Money and Markets.
Time for a short break now, but when we return, we show you how you can take your business to the next level.